Okay, do you enjoy turning compost? Do you enjoy getting out there with a hoe in the sun and killing the weeds around your garden and doing that kind of activity? Or is it just something you've always done or how you were taught? Well, if you find that you love the garden but you don't really enjoy some of those heavy work tasks, I'm going to try to explain to you how we can do it and make it more fun. All right, let's go. Okay, now I've spent a lot of time talking about making gardening fun, taking the hard work out of it. And so I want to give you the simple steps, what you need to do that for yourself, to get your garden to a point where, I go out and I do things in the garden all the time, but I'm not working. I'm more enjoying it. I'm planting and picking and eating the veggies, and I'm not spending all day with a hoe. So the the top step, the first step, this is the one thing you want to do, is mulch. Mulch heavily. The only rule with using mulch is this: less is not more. With mulch, if you put on a thin layer, weeds can still get through it. And then you've got a mulch patch that's a mess, that's hard to deal with. Now you can't get in there and cultivate to get rid of them. So you want to put on mulch, like this. You want to really get a big layer of it. That way weed seeds that are in it or that fall on, they don't get to the ground. If they do get to the soil, if they're in the bottom of the mulch and they get to the soil, they can't get back up through that mulch. So that's the first step. And let me tell you what that's going to do for you. That mulch is going to keep the soil cool. It's going to keep it moist. And also, we're not going to take the mulch up and cultivate. We're not going to till the garden in the spring. Not going to do it. You're going to go out to your garden and delineate between spaces that I grow things in and the spaces that I walk in. Now, you don't have to have raised beds to do that. It's not necessary. You can go out, you can till your garden up, you can hill your rows up, and hill them up where they're double rows if you want to, or even 4-foot wide beds. You can go out and do that. You can take the soil from the pathways, put it into the beds, build them up, and then mulch it all in. And then there you've got it. You've got it set up. Now, I do want you to have it in about 4 growing areas. And this is for the purpose of crop rotation. Okay? There's 2 reasons for crop rotation. So number 1 is that certain families of plants get certain diseases. And if you plant them in the same ground year after year in the same spot, then that can build up in the soil, and then it becomes inevitable. There are 2 plant families you need to worry about. One is the nightshade family. That's tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, I think I said potatoes, peppers, and eggplants. Keep those in the same bed. Then next year, move them to your next growing area. And do that to where they're not back in that same bed. They're absent from there for 3 years. In that amount of time, if you did get blight at some point, it's not in the soil anymore. That soil's ready to go again. Now that's one reason. Oh, and the other plant family that you have to worry about are your cabbages. Your cabbages, kale, collards, uh, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower. That's all cabbage family. Then they get whitefly, and then they're attacked by other insects that will tend to, moving them to another bed next year is a good idea to keep them moving. Now, that's the first reason, is so diseases and pests don't build up. The second reason, which is just as good a reason, is that different plants take different levels of different elements out of your soil. They just do. Corn uses a lot of nitrogen, for instance, where green beans don't. Green beans pull nitrogen out of the air and they store it in little nodules on their roots, and they use it as they produce their fruit. But that's the way it is. Different vegetables will take different amounts of different nutrients. So if you rotate, that evens the load on your garden soil. Now, in my garden, I don't put down fertilizer. So it's kind of necessary. Well, you don't put down fertilizer, what do? Well, I'll tell you. I do have rabbit manure because I raise rabbits to eat, and I do put that down over the winter. I put it down right on top of last year's mulch, and then remulch everything in the spring, and we're off to the races. But you will always need a little bit of nitrogen, because as the mulch breaks down, as things decompose, they require a little nitrogen to do that. So that takes a little bit away from your plants. So you always need to add a little bit of nitrogen. It can be something like a manure. That's fine if you have access to that. It can be something like a chemical fertilizer, or grass fertilizer is almost, for your yard is almost nothing but nitrogen. You could put a little bit of that down in the spring. That would take care of the problem. You could go organic and put down blood and bone meal. There's a lot of things you could do. But you see, when you mulch and you keep it mulched, this does several good things for you. First of all, it reduces your weeds. You get, 90% of them aren't going to show. You're going to go out in your garden in the morning and you're going to have one weed here and one weed way over there and another one way over there, and that's all, if you're doing it on a daily basis. So you go out there, you pull 3 weeds, it takes 2 minutes, you're done. Whatever else you want to do in your garden, you can do. You've got time to do it. And you didn't get all sweated up and lathered up over it. Where, you would have had several times more weeds than that. Even if you were piddling at your garden pretty consistently, you'd have a lot more. So that's the first thing it does. The second thing it does is a deep mulch, no-till method, is it allows your garden soil to develop a structure, to develop its natural structure. And that does a lot of things for you. That in other words, worm tunnels, places where roots used to be, where the plant's gone or died and decomposed, all these little places are in the soil where rain can soak through. And your nutrients from your mulch can come in. And so that's kind of, a top benefit. That it lets your garden will be better drained, but at the same time, it'll absorb water better. And it'll absorb nutrients better. Now, that's a reason for doing it. So what's going to happen is you're going to put that big layer of mulch on there, and it's going to start breaking down. You'll notice by fall it's getting kind of thin. Well, then in the fall, put leaves on it. Give it a little supply of leaves. They have different nutrients because trees have deeper roots. So they pull up more micronutrients from deep down in the soil. Then come next spring, you remulch again and you go. Now, I can hear somebody immediately say, well, what happens to that mulch? Well, what happens is that what's touching the ground, it slowly decomposes down. Okay? Now that releases the nutrients out of it that can go into your soil. Earthworms and other soil inhabitants will take that stuff and take it down into your soil. And then they'll add their own twist on it, like worm castings. So that's why you do it. Another question I can hear being asked, or I've been asked, is, well, how do I plant a seed in that? Well, there's a couple of ways you can do it. I just plant everything in my greenhouse. Everything. Corn, green beans, everything gets planted in the greenhouse. Then when it's tall enough that it can make it, we harden it off and put it out there. Stick it out in through the mulch, plant it, walk away. Works great. The other way is that you can go in the spring before you mulch an area. You can rake that mulch back to leave you a little row, leaving all the mulch in between the rows. Plant your seeds. And then as the stuff comes up and grows, you be going in there and remulching and pulling the mulch around it. That works good too. It's just however you want to do it on that. But you'll find when you get started doing this that, gee, I haven't had to water at all. You'll find that, gee, you know, my soil underneath this mulch is really nice. It's really loose and really nice, really pretty. Better than I've had before. And you'll find that you don't have the hard work anymore. You don't have a compost pile to turn. You don't need one because your whole garden is composting for you. You don't have, you know, the hoe just sits in the garage because, you know, what would you do with it? So you find that your time in the garden is more relaxing and more fun. And that's the point. Let's have fun with our garden. Let's enjoy growing the plants. And just not spend as much time working. When I get done at the end of the year and I have, you know, spent plants, I pull them out, shake the dirt off, lay them right back down on top of the mulch. They become part of next year's mulch. So, you know, everything becomes kind of a full circle here. Now that's the basics. That's the easy part to explain. Why you rotate and why you mulch and why you keep it mulched. And that's some of the benefits that it'll give you. Others are like the ease of planting potatoes. You know, with potatoes, you just tuck them under the mulch. I just set them right on top of last year's mulch and then mulched over them. Easy. When they're done, you just rake the mulch back and the potatoes are right on top of the ground. You can just pick them up. Once in a while you'll get one that's half in the soil, but that's about it. And they come up clean and pretty. You know, they're really fun to do. If I'm pulling green beans today and I'm getting a green bean crop in, and I want green beans and new potatoes to have with lunch or with supper, well, I can get in that mulch and I can steal a few new potatoes off that potato plant without killing the plant. I can steal a few, put the mulch back, it doesn't even know it happened. So there's another benefit. Some things like that can be done easier. With asparagus, the preferred method of planting an asparagus root is to dig this deep trench and put him in this deep trench and then slowly backfill the trench as the asparagus comes up and gets taller. Well, I planted it just under the surface and mulched over it. We're great. The mulch is a good insulator. The plants all came back this spring looking huge and big and healthy. So there's some things to think about. There's how I do it. Well, it's a little windy. I hope I'm being heard well enough. I want you to all have a quality day.